What happened? Good evening. It is time for today's Tax Talk. It is Wednesday, September 15th, year of our Lord 2021. And I want to thank you all for joining us. We've been talking a lot about, well, let's not forget today is the day that the corporate tax returns are due. We've been ahead of the curve on many of these issues that are now becoming very commonplace. And even the mainstream media is picking up on very much of what we've been talking about here. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And so join us. Uh-oh. Join us. Well, welcome to the show. I'm glad you can join us. As I mentioned, today is Corporate Tax Day, September 15th. Now, don't forget, if you ask for an extension for your personal tax returns, they're due 1 month from today, October 15th. Even though they did add some time to May 17th from April 15th, the extension date was not extended. And so you must have your personal tax returns in by October 15th. So don't forget. I can't tell you how many people come to see me and they haven't filed their tax returns for some years, but every year they ask for an extension. But the extension only lasts until the 6 months, the October 15th date. Excuse me. Okay, so what I've been talking about, the theme today is we're ahead of the curve, because I've been on a soapbox about this for some time, about what's going on with this American Families Plan and the infrastructure bill and all of these other bills that are out there, seeking to spend another. I think our budget this year was $5 trillion, and so now we're speaking to spend another $5 trillion. But within this, within that American Families Plan, there's lots of things hidden within that plan. And, as I've been talking about recently, these huge bills that are out there, and I'd love to quote our Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, who says, we have to pass the bill to find out what's in it, right? Because we don't know what's in it, because nobody knows what's in it. But as you go through it, and you are more shocked at the proposals. Now, the good news is, they haven't been passed yet, and we can still stop it, but we need to take action to stop it. It's not going to stop itself. Matter of fact, they're trying to get this all passed, by the end of this month. Will that happen? I hope not, but it could. And the American Families Plan, which is the Biden administration's plan, we're going to review it a little bit. We have reviewed it before. And the things that we're going to talk about today, because that the mainstream media is really coming to grips with, is the reporting of your bank statements to the IRS, everybody's bank statements, every year. I was talking to a client today, and I mentioned this to them, and he thought, well, don't they already do that? And the answer is no. We have federal legislation that prevents it. The Financial Privacy Act. The government can't just go to the bank and say, hey, give me their bank statements. They need legislation to allow that. And there's a United States Supreme Court history behind what is Fourth Amendment rights and what is not. I believe it is a Fourth Amendment right that they should not be able to access my bank account without a subpoena, without probable cause. There's some Supreme Court, like I said, there's some Supreme Court precedent that says maybe they don't. But in response to that Supreme Court precedent, they passed the bill in 1978, the Financial Privacy Act, and we'll talk a little bit about that too. But so let's talk a little bit about the IRS, because that's really the impetus here is the IRS. So yes, it is true. And again, a couple of weeks ago when I started getting on this, when I read the proposal in the American Families Act, and I started reading what was going on there, and I started doing some research to find out, are they really trying to go after all of our bank records every year and require banks to hand over our records so they know exactly how much money went in and out and what we did with it and scrutinize our lives? Because let's face it, our lives are reflected within our bank statement. It could tell you exactly where we were, right? Because we're always using debit cards and all of these other electronic payment devices. So it tells you exactly where you are at different times, what you bought. Well, do I want the government to know exactly what I'm buying? Doesn't have to be illegal for me not to want the government to know what I'm doing. That's my business. It should be. But they want to be able to require the banks, as here. Yes, Biden's proposed legislation would allow the IRS to have more information on bank accounts with more than $600. When it says more information, the only information they're allowed now is interest. So whenever the bank gives you interest on a bank account, they have to file 1099 INT, interest. And that interest is reported because it's income. And that was some years back that the IRS required that. And so that's the only information that your bank has to hand over to the IRS. Your bank and the banking industry was against it. It costs a lot of money for them to give those records out every year and comply with the IRS requirements. Think of trying to comply with something like this. Every bank record that you have and that everybody you know has. Well, under $600. Who has a bank account with under $600 for the whole year? I'd say almost nobody. So it's virtually everyone. And so everybody has to get tuned over. So yes, it is. And then today, and that's what the story is, U.S. representatives from 9 states sent a letter strongly opposing this proposal to Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the IRS commissioner, and others. But Nancy Pelosi knows what's in it. The IRS commissioner knows what's in it. He has said he has supported this legislation publicly. So when he was just in front of the Senate, they asked him these questions, and he supported this publicly. Again, I don't support it, and I don't think you should support it. We should be up in arms about this. How much money do you have to have in your bank account? Depending on the answer, it's like, depending on what you don't have in the whole year, you didn't have $600 in your bank account. That's not. I don't think that's really an answer. It's not like at the end of the year I take all my money out, I have less than 600, and so they don't have to report it. That's not it. Okay, so we can go to the next one. So-called tax gap plan. Remember, I've been talking about the tax gap and how they've been using this as the boogeyman. About one of the boogeymen about why they need this, right? The tax gap, and the tax gap is really about what they call flow-through companies. Oh, the flow-through companies, they're stealing. They're not telling us. We don't know what they have. We need to know what they have because these flow-through companies are stealing, and they're the billionaires and millionaires. Actually, most flow-through companies that's almost every small business person, right? A subchapter S corporation, a partnership. And most, when people come to see me and I help people who are in business, I always recommend that you should start a flow-through company and keep your business expenses separate from your personal expenses. If you have just an LLC, that LLC information is on your personal tax return. But you can do a subchapter S designation for an LLC, and most small businesses do this. And so when they talk about this tax gap is created by the flow-through companies, they're talking about almost everybody who runs their own business. And those are the evil people. The good people are the people who work for the big corporations or any other company, W-2 employees. Why? Because they can track you. They know exactly what you got. And they know and as a matter of fact, your employer has to take out your taxes and pass it to the IRS before the end of the year, right? So and then when you get a refund, they take more than they're allowed, or then I shouldn't say allowed, but then you have to pay. And that's why you get a refund at the end of the year. A lot of people look at that as like a treasure trove. Oh, look at this, IRS is giving me money. No, they're not. They're just giving you your own money back. That's what they're doing. And so when they're using this tax gap to go after bank accounts, but again, they're not saying, oh, only the flow-through companies have to give us their bank account. No, anybody with more than $600. So it's not, they could write the legislation say, if you have a flow-through, then you have to. No, they're doing it for everyone. Everybody, all Americans have to hand over their, and actually you don't hand it over, the bank will hand it over. You don't have anything to do with it. And then so the bankers are opposing it. We oppose the plan that could give the IRS more data about your bank account. And I understand why they would oppose it, just based on the increased costs. Let me see if I can blow this up a little. This week, Congress will consider a sweeping proposal that, if enacted, will require banks and credit unions to report to the Internal Revenue Service detailed information on the inflows and outflows of every account above 600. The inflows and outflows. You mean everything that goes in and out of your bank. That's what they're talking about. The legislative proposal is being considered as a source of revenue for Biden administration's proposed $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation plan. So this is revenue, right? So this is where the freedom of America, the government would come and ask you to pay your taxes. We should all pay our taxes. But the screws shouldn't be put on us that they have to and this is where we hear on the news sometimes, they'll start coming down on kids that have lemonade stands. Why will they do that? Because that's what the law says. They don't use common sense, right? But they want to do these draconian rules that cost more in our freedom and money than they ever will generate, in my opinion. Okay, so that's just a fact. But the proposal requires banks and credit unions to track the transactions of individuals and businesses they serve and then report that activity to the IRS, and for the IRS to use to identity those who are avoiding paying taxes. All of us. If your kid's having a lemonade stand and you're putting it through your own bank account, they may ask you, where's that money coming from? Well, that's taxable money. Well, that was my kid's. Well, it's taxable. That's income. It's taxable. Where did that gift go? Oh, my Aunt Sally from Jersey sent me some money as a gift. Oh, I have to explain that to you? Why would I have to explain that to the IRS? Because they want to know if that's taxable. Well, is it their business that my Aunt Sally gave me that money? What is it their business? Well, you're avoiding taxes. No, I'm not. That's not a taxable event. Instead of infringing on the privacy of customers and occupying resources that could otherwise be focused on serving local communities, we suggest to members of Congress that they direct the IRS to close any tax compliance gap with data and authority the agency already has. The IRS is one of the powerful agencies in the world, certainly in America. They can subpoena any tax record they want, given probable cause. They can subpoena the tax records. They can get all your tax records. I have many clients whose bank accounts are subject to a subpoena, and the bank turns it over. But they have to have probable cause, and they have to have a subpoena to follow the administrative rules. But they want to say that we don't want any of those rules. They're too cumbersome. They protect the privacy of Americans. We don't want it to protect the privacy of Americans. Well, that's a problem, isn't it? Well, so that's just, this is the American Families Act. And I have let me see if I can find it very quickly. I think I can. So here's the American Families Act. And in the American Family, let's just read a little bit. Incredible financial burden, health care. No, that one. Okay, so the president's proposal would change the game, right? Because, let's go up and read the other paragraph here. Because revitalize enforcement to make the wealthy pay what they owe. When they say the wealthy, do they mean anybody with over $600 in the bank account? Are they targeting the wealthy or are they targeting everybody? They're targeting everybody. They want to say that they're only targeting the wealthy, but that's not what this regulation says. And they're not seeking that, as we just showed. They're seeking over $600 in a bank account. Well, that's almost everybody. That's not the wealthy, right? We have a two-tiered tax system, and again, that we do not have a two-tiered tax. I'm just going to skip a little because I've read that over the last couple of days. The president's proposal would change the game by making sure the wealthiest Americans play by the same set of rules as other Americans. It would require financial institutions to report information on account flows so that earnings from investments and business activity are subject to reporting, more like wages. But they're not. If you have wages, they're still going to get your bank statements. That's not going to stop them from getting your bank statements too. So they're not. I have one of these. I'm starting to play a video. So now this is the Right to Financial Privacy Act. Section 3402, access to financial records by government authorities prohibited. So this act that was enacted in 1978 to protect your financial privacy from the government is being overridden. It's being voided. You don't even know it exists, do you? Most people don't. But that's why they don't already take your bank account. Because if there wasn't a law in place, they would have done this many, many years ago. But there is a law in place. And so they're burying the sublimation of this law. They're not even mentioning it. They're just going to pass this other thing under the guise that the wealthy have to pay more. And so we need to do this. But they're not telling you that they're overriding the Financial Privacy Act. Would that alert you if they said, you have to give up your financial privacy? Is that something you're willing to do? Most people aren't. Now, a couple other things that we're talking about. I've been talking about again, what's going on is that they're turning the screws on small business people. They don't think that they're paying enough. Actually, again, I always say small business people pay more in taxes than almost anybody else in America, because they're paying the income taxes, plus they got to pay the self-employment tax. Many companies aren't structured correctly, so they're paying too much taxes. They already do pay too much taxes, but now the government is trying to find ways to make these small businesses pay more. Most small businesses are operating on this very slim margin, right? They're a couple of dollars away from closing. How many small businesses that really make? Some people make money. I get that, and rightfully so. And that's the whole point of starting your own business, right? Is to make a living and make some money, and don't have to be under the thumb of an employer. Let me tell you something. When you're running your own small business, you're under the thumb of much more than your employer, right? You got the IRS on you. You got the state of Illinois on you. You have every municipality on you, and everybody wants part of what you're doing. And that's one thing I think small businesses do wrong is they don't charge enough, because they don't, especially when people come from working for somebody and they say, hey, I can do this. And they start their own business. They don't charge enough because they don't see when you're the worker, you don't see all of the government entities that have their hands out waiting. But they're out there. They're waiting. Okay, so but one of the ways to do that is they're coming after businesses. So let's talk about this now, because they're coming after businesses who have independent contractors. So IRS highlights employer tax responsibilities and benefits during Small Business Week. So the IRS is telling, hey, if you have independent contractors, beware, we're coming after you. We don't want you to have independent contractors. So they're coming after you. So, and that's just another way. So here's your bank records. They want those bank records. They want to dissect every employee to find out if they should be an employee or a independent contractor, because independent contractors, again, they have to report their own income, right? You as an employer with your W-2, I have to report their income and take their taxes and pay it to the government. A 1099 employee, I don't take their taxes and give it to the government. It's up to them to do that. And so the government doesn't want anybody to be a 1099 employee. They want everybody to be a W-2 employee. And that's just a fact. They say it all the time. It is the evidence that I've just presented to you. So the next one I wanted to talk a little bit about, and this is the IRS is closing paper tax return processing center in Fresno. The Internal Revenue Service plans to close its paper return processing center in Fresno permanently at the end of the month. So so the IRS has been experiencing long delays. That's true, but this was planned since 2016. And this is the part I wanted to get to, because this is what I've been talking about. They've closed, well, let's get to this. It says the number of individual returns taxpayers filed electronically has increased from 90 million in 2008 to over 145 million in 2020, or over 90% of all tax returns. The IRS anticipates the trend will continue for both individual and non-individual filers. With the change, taxpayers locate. Okay, so they're just telling you where now you have to mail it. Okay, so, but what my point is, when they are pointing to, hey, look, the budget of the IRS has gone down in real money, not in, because they get an increase in budget. And that's part of the family plan too, is to double the size of the IRS. So they want to double the size of the IRS, get your financial records, inspect every employee and find any way they can to get the bit money from your business. Hey, that's what the law says. You got to pay your taxes. They can make a law to take all of my money, right? But that doesn't make it right. And that's not I don't believe that's what the IRS should be doing. Yes, they should enforce IRS regulations and make sure people are paying their fair share. I love that term, right? Paying their fair share. I think most of us pay our fair share and then some, right? And I think most people would agree with me on that. But anyway, the fair share, the IRS their budget is in my opinion, their budget is plenty. The IRS can and does have the funds to, answer their phone more than 10% of the time, right? And that's where we are. They don't answer the phone. They say, well, that's why we can't go after anybody. We have all this other, it's not processing returns. I played that video, about the IRS video last week or several weeks ago, showing you the labor-intensive activity of processing tax returns. And now that 90% of that's gone. So that was a huge portion of the IRS budget that is no longer necessary, but they don't tell you about that. So things change, right? That the electronic age is here, the computer age is here. So a lot of that labor-intensive work.
Bet Rivers is Chicago's hometown sportsbook. Bet Rivers is proud to be the official sports betting partner of the Chicago Bears. Sign up now, and we'll match your first deposit up to $250. More bets, more action, more fun. Place your sports bets at betrivers.com.
Well, I don't know where that came from, but don't betrivers.com. So anyway, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Remember that we help small businesses fight the IRS. We structure your business. We help structure your business. We help you pay less in taxes legally. Don't pay more than you're legally obligated to pay. Makes sense, doesn't it? So don't pay more than you're legally obligated to pay. And then when you owe the IRS money, you need help to fight the IRS, and that's what we help people do too. So that's why we're open tax advocates, and we advocate for our clients both before you owe the IRS money and after you owe the IRS money. If you owe the IRS money, then you should probably get a copy of my book, Deal with Your IRS Problem Today. And you can get a copy at freeirsbook.com. Again, it's freeirsbook.com. Happy to send you a copy along. Okay, so now one more thing. Now I'm going to ask you to share or actually like or subscribe. Nobody shares anymore. If you like those, share on Facebook. Like it. It helps us. And subscribe if you're on YouTube. And if you subscribe, write something in the comments so I can respond to you. And I want to thank you so much for joining us. And we'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks again.